Welcome to the CHCH Newsmakers podcast. I'm your host, Rick Zamperin. If it's making news in Hamilton, Halton, and Niagara, across Canada or around the world, we're going to jump on it here on Newsmakers. Like many cities in our country, Burlington is facing a number of challenges, but there are just as many exciting opportunities that lie ahead. Joining me on Newsmakers is the Mayor of Burlington, Marianne Meed Ward. Marianne, thanks for joining us today.
Great to be here.
First things first, we just had a major winter storm this past weekend. How is Burlington recovering or digging out?
Very well, considering the circumstances, and I have gotten a lot of positive feedback from our residents, which of course I pass on to our roads crew. They do the magic out there. But we have, like many cities, we have a hierarchy of how we clear the streets. Major roads first, around hospitals, making sure people can get to those areas. And sometimes when you have a storm like we did, by the time you clear that once, you got to go back and clear it. So it takes a little while to get to the, I'll call them the cul-de-sacs and the more residential roads. But they were out there. A lot of those are clear, and where they get packed down, just because it takes a while for us to get there and cars go over it in the meantime, they do put sand down. Then the sidewalk clears are out. But it was great to see community come out. I can tell you on my street, I shovel with my husband and my son. We do our own drive. I was out there in my snow pants at 6:30 in the morning and doing the sidewalk. We do it before the city gets out, and our whole street sidewalk was actually done before the plow came around because we're just trying to be considerate. But all of us got together and did our neighbors, two neighbors on one side. They're an elderly couple, and the windrows are tricky, and then on our other side, so they woke up with their windrows cleared and just had a little bit of snow in their driveway to push out. So it's really, and those stories, that's just what I know in my own neighborhood, but that story is true across neighborhoods in our community. So you
recently held your State of the City address at the Burlington Chamber of Commerce. What were some of the highlights?
The energy in the room was incredible. People feeling positive and optimistic, and that's what I wanted them to leave with, because we are living in times of absolute chaos. 2025, turbocharged the chaos with the tariff war, unnecessarily started by what has historically been a fantastic ally for us, and a lot of uncertainty. And 2026, we know, is going to be more of the same, and possibly for the balance of the U.S. president's term. So it's chaotic, and we need to face that and acknowledge that reality, that this is the moment we're in, that we can't control that, but we can respond and come together. And so I talked about some of the ways that Burlington is trying to help our local businesses and things that we have already done and intend to do. And I think everyone felt that sense of optimism that, yes, even though these things that are being done to us that we can't control and are chaotic, we can come together and we can make our own choices and about how we respond. So it was a very positive breakfast.
Mm-hmm. When it comes to the budget, I know Burlington has only grown so big. I think the only opportunity now is to grow up as opposed to outwards, right?
Yes.
That really handcuffs you in terms of growth assessment. Mm-hmm. What's the game plan there? How do you get that assessment to get higher?
We are in the business of issuing permits. Mm-hmm. So we have done that. We have a tracker. It's unique in Ontario. We were the first to pioneer it. You can see in real time. You can go on your phone at 6 o'clock every morning. It updates, and you can see where all of our applications are. So we have something like 42,000 in our pipeline, and then we break it down for you to show you, what is in the pre-application phase, sort of the hope and a dream tire kick. Somebody comes in and says, I own this property. I think I might want to do this with it, all the way up to planning approvals. So there are, at any given time, between 6,000 and 7,000 units that have been approved that are not being built. And that's because of the economic downturn, a whole bunch of factors. Tariffs, of course, are part of that, interest rates, the uncertainty of the market. And in Burlington, as you mentioned, we don't have land for greenfield development. And so that means condo development. And that market is gone. The investor market is gone because of some of the policy changes that were made for good reasons. Yeah. The unintended consequence is that the investor market is gone. And what that means, you have to pre-sell about 85 or more % of your units before you get bank financing to build. And we just had a project, 2 high-rise buildings up in Northeast Burlington, canceled. Can't make it work. Can't do, the math doesn't work.
Yeah.
And we're going to see more of that. And so it is really, we are not relying on new taxpayers. That's called the assessment growth, moving in new units coming on the property tax base to balance our books. Because we can't. It's unpredictable. It'll be less than, we budget for about 0.5% to 1% of new assessment, and we're tracking about half or a little lower. Mm-hmm. On that. But the solution for us is really to work with our partners at the federal and provincial level. We have a municipal funding system that is 100 years old. When municipalities were responsible for the hitching post and, making sure there weren't potholes in the gravel and the horses went
really
over.
Basic stuff.
Yes. Yeah. So we're a little more sophisticated now. Municipalities are being asked to do almost everything, including areas that have historically been provincial or federal responsibility. So the Ontario Big City Mayors Caucus, of which I'm chair, Association of Municipalities of Ontario, I'm a board member there, Federation of Canadian Municipalities. So basically everybody in the municipal sector has said this doesn't work. The costs that have been downloaded to the provincial property tax base are wrong. We need the 2 other levels of government to lift that off the property tax base. And why is that important? Because I know there are listeners or watchers out there that will say, well, there's only one taxpayer. What difference does it make which pot we pull from? The difference it makes is that property tax is regressive. It doesn't account for your ability to pay. It doesn't account for income. And so what that means is that people who are least able to pay a much bigger share of those costs than those of us who can afford to pay more. So it really needs to be at the income tax level, not the property tax, and let property taxes be used for property, like potholes and sewers and parks, those things which are properly within our wheelhouse.
Because those developers are not seeing the return on investment, would Burlington or other cities that you've spoken with considering changing the designation from residential to commercial or industrial in those areas, or is that a no-go zone?
So they would actually pay twice as much if we did that. Okay. So no, I don't think they'd be happy with us. So the other piece of the puzzle, and I'm glad you raised that, is that the more that we can attract economic development and those industrial commercial uses, the more we can lift the burden off of the single family homeowner or the residential tax base. So the sweet spot for your budget is if you can have about 75% of your income from property taxes coming from residential and 25% coming from that commercial tax base, because they pay twice as much as residential, but also they don't consume the same level of services. Right. And that's really important. So, the folks that work in those buildings sometimes they live in the city, but often they live elsewhere. So they're consuming their library and their park services and programming in another municipality. So we have been trying to increase that economic development assessment growth. We're still on the high side. I would say we're still up in that 80 to 85%. We want to bring it down a little bit, and that really relies on attracting new business to Burlington.
You mentioned the chaos and the uncertainty from the United States, and that has created a bunch of ripples. When it comes to the Buy Canadian and the Buy Ontario efforts, are we seeing the needle move in a positive direction?
Absolutely. Okay. And, I think we've seen some of the data Canada-wide and U.S.-wide, which is certainly true in Burlington. I know anecdotally where people, first of all, are choosing not to travel to the U.S. Yeah. So my family for many years would go to the U.S. for vacation. We haven't done that. We are not going to be doing that. People are, some of them that I talk to in Burlington, selling vacation properties that they might own in the United States. And we've seen from the airline data and from the tourism data, especially right cross-border, it is a staggering decline. So Canadians are voting with their wallets and saying, I'm not traveling, I'm not spending. And then in stores, we're seeing stores identify much more clearly than all of us having to read a package, quite closely with a magnifying glass to see if it's from Canada or not. They're identifying that. So people are choosing to shop local in that way. And now that so one of the things that I did when the tariffs were first announced, I convened a task force on tariff response with our steel and manufacturing and other partners around the table, the Chamber, Economic Development. Two of my council colleagues, Councillor Sharman and Galbraith, were part of that. And one of the first things we did was, first of all, can we give all the industrial commercial class a tax break? So no, don't pay us taxes for a period of time, and we're not going to charge you interest. If you need that cash flow right now, we get it. So here's something, a little something we can do. But we also advocated for that Buy Canadian, Buy Ontarian, because municipalities as a sector do billions of dollars of procurement across our country. And we have been prevented by trade agreements from preferring local. And when we see that agreement effectively being torn up and thrown in the trash, we were saying, well, take the handcuffs off us. Let us, in our procurement, we have big procurement power. Let us prefer local so we can support our local businesses through these times. And we weren't the only ones to ask for that, but I think our voice with many others led to the Buy Ontario, Buy Canadian provisions that do exactly that.
So we're almost a year into this tariff nightmare, for lack of a better term. What are you hearing from Burlington businesses? Are they in a good spot now? Are they still struggling? Or some doing better than others?
They are hanging on. Yeah. They're hanging on. And we knew, they've been through this rodeo before, the last Trump administration, they did that to us then. And so a lot of our companies, when I reached out when it was first announced over a year ago to say, what does this look like for you? And they said, well, we know how to bank inventory, and they had a lot of ways that they could kind of cushion the blow for a period of time. But they said beyond 6 months to a year, it's going to get challenging, and we're kind of at that stage right now. So there are no businesses closing, thankfully, in Burlington yet. I hope not to see that, but we've seen that in other municipalities. And the steel industry, people don't know that Burlington has a lot of steel manufacturers, and we have a lot of what I'll call auto adjacent. We supply a lot of auto parts to Oakville, to other plants that themselves are seeing a change. Reducing shifts. We just heard about the layoffs at one plant recently. So it is, there can be a ripple effect. So the ripple will hit us later if this isn't corrected. But they're hanging on right now. We haven't seen any businesses close, and people are pivoting. And, the good news about our business community, and I think this is true in Canada, having lived through COVID, businesses know how to adapt. They know how to adapt. They know how to pivot. They know how to figure. It's like, it doesn't matter if I can solve this. Doesn't matter who caused this. We just have to react, and that's what they do. They innovate. They react, and that's our. I think that's our secret sauce as a country.
On the auto sector front, the Canadian Prime Minister just signed a deal with China for 49,000 EVs to come our way. Your thoughts on that?
This, so at the risk of speaking about things that I have minimal knowledge of, I was actually at the Rural Ontario Municipal Association conference recently, and I get teased by all my rural mayors for showing up as the big city kid. But Burlington's half rural, so but they have lots of workshops and special speakers on topics that are interest to cities of all size. And one of the speakers was Chantal Hébert, who I have a lot of respect for, a journalist, obviously out of Montreal and or Quebec. She was talking about the EV deal, and what I didn't know is that it is targeting a market that Canada actually doesn't provide on the lower end of the electric vehicle market, and so it's not directly competing. According to her, with the EVs that we currently supply. So if it gets more people in a cheaper car that is environmentally friendly and doesn't compete with our local companies, that seems to make a lot of sense to me. And it's a small amount. It's about 3% of the overall auto market. So in exchange for, and this is the real key, people are focusing on EVs, but it was in exchange for lifting tariffs on food products and many other goods in our country that have really crippled our agricultural economy. So there's always, trade is a trade-off. Yeah. And it seems to me that this was probably a good small step in the direction of opening up new trade partners, which we absolutely need.
You're chair of the Big City Mayors. Is there an idea out there that one community is doing that you think, wow, this could work in Burlington?
In any category? Yeah. Well, one of the biggest crisis of our time is the mental health addictions, homelessness crisis that is unfolding in our streets. Especially now, we see people out in the street. This morning, when I was out, I saw somebody standing on a street corner in it was minus 12 on my car thermometer, and it was probably worse with the wind chill. Yeah. And there are communities, London, Kingston, to name two, and others that have pioneered the partnership model that we're going to need. No one sector is going to be able to solve this, and no one level of government, but they've brought together nonprofit providers, social service providers, other levels of government, and they've contributed either land or development charge relief or other funding from the municipality to get housing units, supportive housing with wraparound services up and running. And I was able to visit one in London about a year ago and just talk to some of the residents, and I'll never forget this one man who was having his breakfast when we arrived, and he said, with tears in his eyes, I lived on the streets of London for 9 years. Wow. And they came and found me and said they had a place for me to stay. And he just gives thanks every day that he has a roof over his head that is warm and a safe place to stay. And that's the difference, right? And so we're actually in Burlington right now, partnering with a nonprofit, bringing the region together, bringing some of our federal housing affordability money. The city will contribute something to see if we can provide something in very short order. So we hope to have a more formal announcement down the road, but that brings all levels of government together with a nonprofit provider to get folks housed and off the streets. Mm-hmm.
It's interesting you bring this up, because there's a lot of people in Hamilton who look at what's happened in that city and say, well, there's a lot of unhoused people in Hamilton. You don't see this in Burlington, but you're seeing it.
We do see it, yeah. And it is, people will go where the services are too. Right. And so because we're a two-tier system, the services tend to be spread out all over Halton. And there are services here in Hamilton that certainly Hamilton residents would gravitate to. But we see it. We had an encampment over a year ago just right beside our Burlington Center Mall in a forested area. And they were heating with propane, and they set their tent and encampment on fire. It was a huge forest fire just before Christmas over a year ago. And so this living situation isn't safe for the people living in them either. So that kind of put an end, unfortunately, to that encampment. And that's what we're seeing in some municipalities, Kingston to name one, Barrie to name another, our own experience with the fire, that it's a dramatic, terrible situation that has led to these encampments being no longer being there. But where did the people go? Yeah. We don't know. I don't know where those folks ended up who were living there. They didn't come back after the fire. And but we see it, and actually the Association of Municipalities of Ontario just released their sort of a report card, a progress report, if you will, but it's progress in the wrong direction. It's actually not progress. It's the reverse of progress, an 8% increase in the number of unhoused people across the province, and it's even worse in small and rural communities. So this problem didn't arise overnight. It took decades and many different governments of all political stripes. So this is not a partisan issue. It's not the blame of the current government, but it's on their watch that we have to take aggressive, dramatic, significant steps. They are taking some, but they're baby steps. So the heart hubs that the province has announced are helpful, and they are going to where the need is greatest. So we don't have one in Burlington yet, but a whole lot more of those are going to be needed to address this issue.
Well, best of luck in making that progress in Burlington. It's not an easy task in many regards. Back to the State of the City address that you made at the Burlington Chamber of Commerce. Another highlight you were focused on was traffic congestion, getting people to where they needed to be, not only quicker, but safer as well. What's the focus, and is it just downtown Burlington that you're looking at?
No, it's across the city.
Okay.
And there are different reasons why the traffic is what it is in different parts of the city. Downtown, of course, is affected by any construction on the Skyway, but Plains Road in Aldershot is affected by any trouble on the QE. And then out east in Ward 5, their streets get shut down. Again, if there's people trying to avoid just simple congestion on the QE, they jump off there. And so the east end of Burlington sees it. And then in our north, we have different traffic and safety issues where certainly in our rural community, people think the roads are lovely to speed on. And, and we've had some serious accidents up there. And so this is an issue with different sides of it and different iterations of it in different parts of the city. So, we thought, well, I'm a firm believer that bringing more minds into the room makes for better decisions and solutions than having one mind. So I announced at the State of the City that I'm convening a traffic and safety roundtable to bring experts in the field, different levels of government, people that touch some area of traffic and safety. Our residents will be around the table that have been involved in these issues as well. So we'll be meeting. Our first meeting, I believe, is in February, and then which is right around the corner. And then what we're aiming to do is bring those minds together, talk about what the challenges are, the issues, and bring an action plan together. And where it's within the city's purview, we would bring those recommendations to council, and whether it's other levels of government, we would do our advocacy work there. Do
you have a timeline on when the final recommendations might be made?
We'll, if we have some quick win recommendations coming out of February, let's launch. So it could be sort of a rolling, and we'll see how many meetings, we need in order to get that up and running. But, I'm really confident that the answers are there, and we just need to get the right people in the room to formalize it and then to take action.
You've spearheaded the Elect Respect initiative. What is it? Why is it needed?
Elect Respect is very simple. It is a pledge that anybody can take, residents. It started with elected officials, so I've, of course, taken it. But the pledge is to treat people with respect, to that when we debate the significant issues and challenges of our time, and we should debate them, and difference of perspective is welcome and important for democracy, we should focus on policy and not personal attack. And it really came out of the fact that many of us in Halton, and it started with a group of women called Her Halton that I convene a couple of times a year for support. These are elected representatives from the trustee level all the way up to MPs and cabinet ministers. And at one of our meetings, I'm going to say about 2 years ago, we started talking about, would you recommend to your daughter or son or your children or a friend to run for elected office? And there was a time where without hesitation, I would have said, absolutely, absolute best thing in the world. You serve your community, you see progress, you meet people doing amazing things, and you can see the difference that you make every day. And we all got into elected office for that, into public service for that. And we all kind of sat back and said, I don't know, I'd have to tell them. I'd have to tell them about the personal attacks, the online slander, the misinformation. And worse, I'd have to tell them about the death threats.
Right.
And we all had a story. And as we looked around the room and just astounded by what we were hearing, and none of us had really ever talked to each other about it before. And because you just kind of carry on, you just do your work and you say, well, I guess that's what it is now. And it really started during COVID. And we said, no, that's not okay. So we're going to pledge the one thing we can do is say what we're about and lead by example. So we can pledge to not do that. We can pledge to treat each other with respect. And then we're going to ask for that in return from our colleagues, from members of the public. We're also going to ask relevant authorities to intervene and take this very seriously and take measures to keep us safe. And from that, it has grown into a national movement, and it's gone well beyond elected office. It's really any public-facing profession, businesses, retail, commercials. So the chamber, Burlington Chamber was the first to pick it up, our local business improvement areas, the library, Conservation Halton, other boards are picking this up. And one of the questions I get asked is, well, don't all the organizations have a code of conduct or something like that? And it's like, yes, they do. And that's important also. This is different because a code of conduct is something that's done to you.
Right.
That's what, you get your employment offer and it's like, you must follow this, whether you want to or not, whether you think it's great or not. And yes, there are consequences if you don't, but you don't sign up for that. You don't say, this is what I'm about. Yeah. That's why the pledge is really, really important. So in addition to any codes that you're required to follow, this is a voluntary statement of what matters to you and that you will conduct yourself in a way that is respectful.
You don't have to get too deep, but do you have a personal experience that really hit you hard? That you thought, wow, I didn't see this coming?
Yeah, I have, unfortunately, a number.
Too many to tell you.
I have many I could talk about, but I'll talk about one that happened about a year ago this time. There was a development application, and development files can get particularly spicy in most communities, and people feeling very passionately about their neighborhood, having very strong views, and, so people get very, very involved, and it can be very stressful. And there was a development application. There was a public meeting about this major new development. There had been no approvals, but it was a public meeting, and I was intending to go. And a resident phoned the office, threatened to set me on fire if I went to the meeting. Untraceable phone number, difficult to, so, what do I do? How do we find this person? And then they actually DM'd me on Instagram, and we turned that over to the police and said, can you track who this is? And they were able to track, thankfully. And that can be tricky too, because there's fake accounts and ways to screen your real identity. But they were able to identify who it was. But so not only was I threatened with bodily harm potentially causing death, I was told not to go to that public meeting. And that's the impact. It affects your ability to do your job, to serve the community, to do the very thing that you signed up for, that you were elected for, that matters to me, is to be there with my community, to hear their thoughts, to consider all of that, because at some point I will have to make a decision about this. So it really affected my ability to do my job. And then I now have to tell my family why I'm not going to this public meeting, which is part of my job. I have been threatened with bodily harm, and there's only so much that you can ask your family to accept. And that was a very worrying period of time. And it's not the only time I've been told not to go to a public meeting because I could be harmed. And so that's the impact. That's why this is so important. And the sad part of this is that I'm not unique. That's why this has gone across the country. I was just a week or so ago speaking to the City Council of Courtenay, BC. The mayor brought the resolution. It was unanimously approved. But that's just one story of many. Every elected official in our country, everyone in public-facing professions has a story, and we have to fix this as a country. So and it starts with us saying no more, not okay, and I'm not going to put up with it, and I'm going to ask you to treat me with respect, and in return, I will do the same.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that story. I know it's not easy to talk about these sensitive things, especially when families impacted as well.
Yeah.
In saying that, Municipal elections coming up in
Yes,
October.
it is.
Are you still in the game? Are you running again?
Right now I am focused on doing the work that residents elected me to do as mayor. So that's my focus. I don't have a public announcement right now. I do love the public service. I love what I do and have seen incredible progress since I first became a councillor in 2010. But I'll have a more formal announcement at the right time.
Okay. Do you have a drop dead date on when you want to, like even in your mind, say?
Well, maybe I can do a little PSA for the elections for folks watching, and this is for any candidates that might be thinking of running too. And I really do encourage people to think about running. Democracy depends on choice. Think about putting your name on a ballot. So for those out there, the PSA is this. The earliest you can formally register is May 1st. Okay. And that date's important because once you're registered, your name is on a ballot. And you can raise money, spend money, get out there in the community and tell them why you want to run and why you want to serve. The end of the nomination period is August 21st. Okay. So in that window, new people can come into the race or take themselves out of the race or change positions. And we see that sometimes somebody running for council and then popping up to mayor or vice versa. So that period, watch for, and then after August 21st, the ballot is set. You know who your candidates are and what your choices are, and the election day, of course, is Monday, October 26th. So mark that date. Make sure you get out and vote. No matter what you do, we have online voting in Burlington. We have advanced polls. We make it easy for folks to mark their choice. So somewhere in that period, there will be announcements from many people, I'm sure.
Excellent. I want to ask you about Victoria Mbuko, a great ambassador from the city of Burlington. Recently got a key to the city. Of course, National Bank Open tennis tournament champion. She had a wonderful run at the Aussie Open as well.
Yes.
Made it to the fourth round, which is the first time she's ever done that. What a great ambassador she's been for the city.
She's incredible, and I had the privilege of meeting her and presenting her, of course, with the key to the city, which is, the greatest honor that I can bestow as mayor on our residents. And she's just the most down to earth, lovely, humble, but fierce. Fierce and that competitive drive, which is why she is where she is. And I love her story because when she entered that competition, she was ranked, in the 300s. And she shot right up and she won. So I think that's a really inspiring story for people, that you can come from behind, you can be an underdog. Don't let anybody tell you can't do it, and that you don't underestimate the power of somebody to just put their mind into something and make it happen. Yeah. So she's a great role model, and I suspect we probably had an uptick in tennis memberships.
Yes.
Programming since.
I was going to ask, has Burlington been thrust into maybe creating more tennis courts in the city?
Well, that is exactly the request, and that was honestly predictable that we would. And you know what? We know we need more community amenities. That is on my long-term vision for the city. That tennis we hear about. We're building more pickleball, ice time, swimming pools. There's a request for an Olympic-size indoor swimming pool. We have an outdoor one, but it's only available obviously in season. And so we do get these requests from community saying, we want to participate in physical activity and competitive activity. We have amazing athletes that have gone on to, our hockey players who also have gotten the key to the city, playing on Team Canada. And so we are an incubator for incredible sports and cultural talent, and we want to invest in it. So we do have, this is one of the things I touched on in my State of the City, there's a long-term vision for, we call it the 1200 King Road site. It goes between the Aldershot GO Station and King Road, major single landowner, which is great, and they're partnering with us to build that vision. And there is, as part of that, which will be a major residential commercial retail, to have community amenities, an event center, have some community space there, and that is all part of the long-term plan for that. And we know we need more.
Yeah. So the Sound of Music Festival is ending, but there's going to be a new summer music festival coming. Can you share any details?
So MRG won or was selected among those who said, hey, I'd like to run a festival. The city, as always, put money on the table. We had $150,000 to offer out there. So we had over a dozen folks come forward to make a proposal. This is the one that our staff, our recreation staff, felt, and they had a whole team of people that included our BIAs, included police, a group of people that know what it takes to do a festival and know this, our former Sound of Music Festival really well. And this one really rose to the top. They run festivals out west. They're trying to move and expand into, out east or central, us. Mm-hmm. And so they're really working, their model is to work with local businesses, community volunteers to run a festival that really respects the local history and legacy and community involvement. So it'll be a 2-day festival. That was the initial proposal, rather than a 4-day. But it will remain free, which was really important to me, that we have free music festival and a huge focus on Canadian talent so we can support local. Mm-hmm. But we'll get more information in the next couple of months and about what they're planning and ways for community to get involved, either to volunteer or sponsor. Okay, keep us posted on that. Last question for you. Your message going into 2026, I know we're almost a month in, but your message to Burlington residents on, some of them have felt some pain economically and through the uncertainty. Others are, ultra successful, and everyone in between. What's your message to your residents? Let's stand by each other. Stand by, stand together, come together. These are chaotic times, but we get through them. We know how to get through this. We got through COVID together. We'll get through this together. This too shall pass, but it will pass with us standing together and being stronger out of it. So, there's lots of ways that we at the city have tried to make life more affordable, from free transit, waiving programming fees for folks who need it. We're looking at cutting development charges to make homeowners more affordable, and a whole raft of specific things, but at bottom it's really about how can we help each other, and that's what Burlington's known for. Our motto is stand by. That's what we do. We stand together in tough times, and these are tough, chaotic times, but I know we'll get through it. Thanks for joining us today and sharing all the excitement that's happening in Burlington. Thank you. All right, that is Burlington Mayor Marianne Meed Ward. Thank you for checking out the Newsmakers podcast, and a big thank you to the all-star cast behind the scenes. If you like today's episode, click the thumbs up, hit subscribe, leave a comment as well. Catch the Newsmakers podcast on chch.com/podcasts and wherever you get your favorite podcasts.